meet you here. Thank you very much for coming and welcome our fantastic Thomas Beavitt.
Здравствуйте. Очень рад быть здесь. So, rhyme and rappability. I can't translate this into Russian. Я не могу переводить на русском. Rappability. Rappабильность можно сказать. Rappабильность, что это? Это, okay, so language is essentially rhythmic. When we speak rhythmically and we kind of hear a beat. As we speak, we hear the beat. And this gives our speech its urgency, its relevance. That's how we feel that something is being communicated. We feel the beat. And so rappability, language, rappabильность, language should be felt. It should be the urge to communicate should be not only understood but felt. And this is why rap, in my opinion, is kind of the key, the most important music genre today, because it sounds and feels like natural language. And so good rappers they sound like they're talking to you, even more than singers and more than speech makers, orators. So verse translation in the 21st century, for me, that has to take into account what is rap. Why is rap so popular? My program, it's a collaboration program. It's called Global Village Bard. Как сказать по-русски? Глобальный деревни бард? Нет. Наверное, нет. Let me quickly explain this name. You probably have heard the medium is the message, right? Who said that? Some Canadian guy. I forgot his name. The medium is the message. And he also had the idea of the global village. The global village, long before the internet came, the global village is, it's like a village, but it's global. And so the global village bard is the guy who sits there. He's not very popular. He annoys people, plays his guitar, and everyone tells him to shut up, like in Asterix, right? So that's me. And it's everyone I work with. Global Village Bard. We say things that some people would wish we wouldn't say. But we have to say them. They have to be said. So, and re-enchanting the world. What does that mean? It means that the world became disenchanted when technology replaced religion. And we lost that feeling of being kind of connected, this true feeling. But we can still re-enchant the world. And we do that through collaboration. Мне стало очень интересно русский язык, русская культура. 14 лет назад, и я слушал Высоцкого. Мне очень понравилось, как он пел, как он был очень интенсивно, и я думал, он Global Village Bard. Советский, но глобальный. I was invited, меня пригласили сюда, в Россию, в 2014 году, в Екатеринбург, и я работал и жил. Я здесь работаю и живу после этого, до сих пор. And in this time, I've been working with many collaborators here in Yekaterinburg, translators, singers, musicians, and designers, dancers, on some different projects. And Global Village Bard is 100% independent and self-funded. I do not receive any funding from any governments or corporations, except Sometimes I take commissions for translations. I was invited to translate some songs from the Великая Патриотическая война, and I was paid for this. This was about 8 or 9 years ago. You can call this funding from a government, kind of indirect. But apart from that, it's all completely independent. Самостоятельный. Следующий. So, in this time, we've been working together with many translators, singers, dancers, musicians, technicians, producers, illustrators, and the essence of Global Village Bard is collaboration with people on projects, artistic, cultural, and especially when relations are difficult between countries, this independent cultural diplomacy becomes more important, in my opinion. So, in this time, I've been involved with many Russians on these projects. Björn's Vysotsky was the first project here in Yekaterinburg. We had a festival. Björn's, Robert Björn's, вы все знаете, Роберт Бернс, кто он? Очень хорошо переводил его стихи Самуэл Маршак. И я люблю Маршака и его перевод. So we made an album, we did some concerts, translating Burns into Russian, translating Vysotsky into English. And I will present one translation in a few minutes. Saints and Sinners was some poems by Ural poets, which I translated to English, and then composed songs, and we recorded these songs in Russian and in English. Songs of the Great Patriotic War, I already explained, was a commission. So some of these songs like Темная ночь, Жди меня, Tra-la-la, I translated when we co-wrote an article about this process with Mikhail Brodsky. And there's also a relatively popular video on YouTube, Songs of the Great Patriotic War. You can Google it, you will find our video with some singers from Yekaterinburg. The Righteous Blood of the Bard is a song cycle based on poems of Lermontov, and also Lermontov's ancestor, предок, Thomas the Rhymer, Thomas Rifmach, which is also my rap name, Thomas Rifmach, right? Because I match the riffs, that's the idea. And Thomas Rifmach, the real Thomas Rifmach, lived in Scotland 800 years ago, and he was a very important bard, and he was actually important in the development of the English language. There are some published manuscripts of his from the 15th century in Middle English dialects, and if you will find these dialects hard to read, as I did, but I made a kind of modern English adaptation. And Michael Fagin, one of my collaborators, translated beautifully this text into Russian. Winter Journeyman was a project to translate Schubert's song cycle Winterreise from German into English, and was produced with myself singing, not very well, and Alexander Polyakov here in Yekaterinburg playing the piano very well. And then we came to another project of Lermontov. I was commissioned to translate his poem, actually it's so hard to say in Russian, but the 11th of June 1831 is kind of the title. It's kind of a bad title, but it's a beautiful poem by Lermontov. I was commissioned to translate this by a filmmaker from Moscow. He wanted to make a film in Scotland about Lermontov's Scottish connections. So he asked me to translate this. And when I translated it, I noticed that his text was extremely rhythmic and very kind of interesting. And I wanted to, rather than sing it, I wanted to rap it. And so we worked with Andrei Bakovikov and Nikita Nikitin здесь в Екатеринбурге, музыкант, композитор, продюсер. И мы записали, этот трек и на русском языке, и на английском языке. Я буду читать рэпом скоро. And Heraclitus Flow. This was some poems that I wrote for translation. I was considering this question when I was translating Schubert. What does it mean to translate a text that is singable? Why are some texts more singable than others? Как? Singability. Песность. Напевность. So, there is a difference. For a singer, if you try to sing a text that is not singable, you won't be able to sing it. And if you are translating a song, it must be singable. Otherwise, what's the point? But a translation also has to be true to the content. You can't just write any verse that sounds good. Then it's not a translation. So there's got to be a balance. You've got to try to be faithful to the source text. But the target text must sound as if the music had been fitted to it. And these rules were given by Richard Dyer Bennett, who also translated a Schubert song cycle into English. Actually, it was Die schöne Müllerin. And so he wrote down these rules. The target text must sound as if the music had been fitted to it. The original rhyme scheme must be kept, because it gives shape to the phrases. Okay, все понятно? Liberties must be taken with the literal meaning when necessary. Must. There's no such thing as a translation which is 100% accurate and singable. Doesn't exist. I promise you. Don't even try. No, try. So, and then Nikolai Gumilyov, who I translated a few of his verses. I think he's great. Also wrote down some rules for translating poetry. Now, poetry, is it the same as song? This is a question. But on поет, on поет. On поет, on поет. So it's very close, right? And I believe that if you are translating poetry, the first thing to do is to try to hear the music of the poetry. All poetry has music, otherwise it's not poetry. And if you can hear the music in the source language, then you can translate it, listening to that music, and the same music will be in the target language. So this is the essence of the endeavor, as far as I'm concerned. So Gumilov said, okay, we need to stick to the number of lines, can't change. Meter and measure, okay, so you can't exactly change a 4/4 to a 3/4. Well, you can, but it's got to be adapted. And also we have this meter and measure. We'll look at this shortly with a Vysotsky text. It's a very interesting question. Maybe some linguists here can help me to answer this question. In English, we tend towards iambic pentameter. This is the language of Shakespeare. Da 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 da. And this is iambic, right? Da 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 da. So the da is short and the d stressed is long. Da, 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 da. And we mark stress with vowel length in English. Now, in Russian, it's slightly different. Does that sound natural to you? Da, 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 da. Well, there's lots of good poetry being written in Russian in iambic pentameter. Pushkin, Lermontov, many others. But some have said that Russian is naturally trochaic. I'm not convinced, but some authors have said, da-da, 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 da-da. Does that sound more Russian than da-da, 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 da-da? Well, I'm not going to tell you the answer because I don't know either. But it's a something for you to think.
That's not on the first syllable.
In any case, right. In any case, you can transform between iambs and trochees, no problem. But there is a kind of, what is the essence of a text? So, meter and measure, we're talking about this, the rhythm. Alternation of rhymes. So you've got an end line rhyme. It might be A, A, B, B. It might be A, B, A, B. It might be A, B, C, A, B, C. End line rhyme. So this is the rhyme that marks the end of the line. But rhyme is much more complex than that. There is also internal rhyme, as we will see, and many other rhyming effects. And I would define rhyme at a rhythm. Rifma. Rifma. Thomas Rifmach, Thomas the Rhymer, Rifma. Right, so it is what structures a rhythmic text. It is repeated patterns of sound in the line, in the phrase. Okay? Now, alteration of rhymes. So you've got to kind of keep that scheme. Also, we have, at end line rhyme, we have masculine, feminine, and triple rhymes. Masculine rhyme is a word which ends with a stressed syllable or is one syllable. Okay? And so that stressed syllable will be the same. And it will be the last syllable of the line. Feminine rhyme, you can have da, 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 da at the end. And it's the stressed syllable that must rhyme, but the one that comes after it should also rhyme. Okay? And then you can have da, da, da at the end. But it still has to be da, 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 not da, da, da. Da, da, da. And that's a triple rhyme. Okay, linguistic register, character of enjambment. Enjambment is when you carry the phrase over the line, right? По-русски enjambment, right? Spelt how? So a line, what we're talking about here is the relationship between line and phrase. Отношение между строкой и фраза. Okay. So if the phrase and the line are the same, there will be no enjambment and no cut. The phrase will be the line. You will start with a breath. That will be the end of the phrase and the end of the line. But many times, as we will see, the phrase continues over the line, or many times the phrase ends in the middle of the line. And this relationship is absolutely important. So Gumilyov says, the character of the enjambment must be preserved. Well, but that doesn't mean exactly. It means it should be kind of a bit like the way there's a similar effect in the verse. Okay, character of rhymes. That doesn't mean that in the source, if you've got, let's say, so hard to think of examples, but see and free. Let's say you've got, I could see, I felt free. Okay? That doesn't mean you've got to use E if you're translating that into Russian. No. But it means you've got to be aware that there is this E sound, and we'll come to that. You can't just kind of substitute the E sound with an O sound without changing the effect. Okay, maybe you will change the effect because you have to, but you should be aware. It's a factor. Linguistic register. And that means if somebody's singing some kind of блатная песня, like Vysotsky did, you don't want to translate it like a literary professor or a politician. It won't sound right. And rap has got a certain kind of gangstery sort of... you won't get the right effect if you... but then if you're trying to sound like Pushkin, you should sound like Pushkin. You shouldn't sound like some rapper. So literary register. Metaphor type. Poetry is essentially about metaphors. Metaphory, right? But you have to be able to transform metaphors. You can't literally translate metaphors. Why not?
Well, some of them don't have the same meaning.
Right.
In the same way for a Russian listener.
Right, right. So metaphors are culture specific. So literal translation of metaphor is usually a bad idea. Sometimes, like a calque, it can work. A calque is a literal translation of a metaphor. Metaphor type, we talked about special devices. Special devices, well, we can think about what a special device is, but it's just kind of something that makes this poem what it is. And finally, transitions of tone. And this is where you are changing the tone of the poem. And many poems rely on such changes. They're not the same all the way through. And we will see with an example very soon what that means. So this was one of my early translations of Vysotsky, and I think one of the most successful. Everybody knows Ochota na Volkov, right? No? Millennial, blin. Okay, well, your dad knows it. It was actually written in the year I was born, 1968. And it is about a wolf hunt, and it's about these red flags that they traditionally would hang in the forest to make the wolves run a certain way, because wolves do not jump red flags. Everyone knows this, right? And so this was Vysotsky's metaphor, and the wolf was the metaphor for the kind of savage human being, and the individual, and the pack. And what is the difference? And the metaphor of the hunter and the red flags is obviously the kind of oppressive state. The red flags are the kind of the things you must not say in public, the things you must not do, and also in our journalistic tradition in the West, the newspapers that used to be used, and still are when you're not reading them online, to serve as flags for showing what the wolf must not do, used to have red tops. So these are the strongest, most propagandistic newspapers. Maybe it was the same. Did Pravda have a red top? I guess not. It didn't have color. Okay, but in the West, it works even better, this metaphor of red flags, because this is the newspaper red top. the really savage propagandistic newspapers. So when I translated it, I kept this metaphor in mind, and I adapted it to an English-speaking Western audience. Also, Vysotsky sings as if looking down on the action, like Tolstoy also writes, like from the heavens, looking down on these miserable ants down below. Idiot охота на волков, idiot охота. Idiot, it goes, yes? He's describing something he sees down there. But this doesn't work for me. It goes, the hunt, it goes. This is not a narrative in English. So, in order to translate this text, I had to find a different narrative perspective. So I split the voices. I split the voice of the hunter in the chorus from the voice of the wolf in the verses, and I gave the hunter an English accent, and I gave the wolf a Scottish accent. Why? Partly because I'm from Scotland, and I experienced the feeling of being the underdog in British society, and partly because the r in Russian and in Scottish English sounds a bit like a wolf. So it created an effect. Also, if you know the song, it's got this kind of... Now, is this trochaic or iambic? Idiota chota na volkov, idiota chota. So, the question is open. Is it trochaic?
Iambic, of course.
It's iambic. You hear it as iambic, that's good. Okay. So what did I try to do? I tried to preserve the meter, this kind of driving rhythm, the images of the wolf and the hunter and the red flags. But I adapted voices. I created a new narrative perspective. I used the r in Scots English for an effect. I preserved the political metaphor, individual freedom versus conformity to state ideology. And I universalized this political metaphor to apply to other contexts, not just Soviet context or Russian context. Okay, so I'm going to try and sing it to you without a guitar, first time ever, so that you can kind of feel how it sounds. Следующий, пожалуйста. With all the strength that bursts from our sinews, it's the same old story again. When you see them, there's something within you, makes you cluster like sheep to a pen. From the forest, where guns start to rumble, from bushes, where hunters lie low, claws scratch ice as wolves rush and tumble, living targets with nowhere to go. Who'll come a-hunting for the wolf? Who'll come a-hunting? Who'll shoot and be a man? Some cub or suckling dam? As the beaters wave, the slavering hounds confront him. Blood on the snow and rows of fluttering scarlet flags. I won't sing the whole thing, but... It sounds better with the guitar. So let's move on. That was just an illustration. So, we talked about singability. Как опять сказать? Певучность. Певучность. Певность. Let's make an analogy from singability to rappability. So, if a text is singable, is it also rappable? Well, kinda. The same rules apply. And by the way, these are the same rules that Gumilev wrote, and also that Marshak and Chukovsky formalized. And by the way, Chukovsky's book about poetic translation, I think, is probably the best in any language that has been written. So if you're interested in this stuff, read Chukovsky. And I think a lot of what Chukovsky was doing, and the guys in that kind of period of Soviet, when perhaps it was too dangerous to write anything yourself, but you could certainly translate. And these guys really translated well. So for me, this was the golden age of poetic translation in the 40s, 50s. And this we should go back to this great knowledge that these people developed. So, what makes a translation rappable? Is it the same as singable? Well, some special devices, e.g. melisma, are not applicable. When I was translating Schubert, for example, there's some things where he goes, ha, 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 ha. And this is just one syllable in one word. And chattering birdsong Malay, chattering birdsong Malay. That was how I translated it. And it sounds like a bird singing, ha, 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 ha. Well, not really, but it creates a kind of effect. And you can do that with singing, but you can't do that with rap. It won't work. It won't fly. And a rap should sound natural. It should sound like spoken language. What a good rap is like a good political speech. It will get people, and people will feel that the rapper is talking to them in their language. So naturalness becomes more important than in singing. And how do we get a handle on naturalness? Well, it's all in the phrase, in my opinion. What is a phrase? A phrase has a shape. It has a kind of a melodic contour. We stress prominences in different ways in different languages. Вы не знаете об этом? This is a particular characteristic of Russian. We don't say, do you know about that? That doesn't sound natural in English. But вы не знаете об этом sounds well, to my Russian ear, developing ear, it sounds normal to ask a question with a in the middle. So this is how you mark questions in Russian, right? Whereas we have to use do you. We have to use this do word. And of course, you always say the most important syllable in the phrase the loudest, the one that you want people to understand. And this will also be the stress syllable in the word. So we've got a pattern of stress syllables in words, in English and Russian the same, kind of. One stress per word, right? But you also have a stress contour in the phrase, which also includes up and down cadences, low pitches and high pitches in a phrase. In English, we also use length of vowel to mark prominence, perhaps a little less in Russian. We distinguish, for example, between life's a bitch and life's a beach. How do we make that distinction? Bitch is shorter than beach, but you don't have that vowel length distinction in Russian in the same way. So what else is rap? Rap is strongly isochronic. What does isochronic mean? It means that stressed and unstressed syllables are regularly alternated against the underlying beat. Regularly alternated against the underlying beat. So there is a regularity of diction in rap which resembles spoken language, but rap is essentially isochronic. Okay, and flow. People talk about the flow, man. What's your flow? And good rappers have good flow. Bad rappers have bad flow or no flow. This is the main criterion. Flow. It is the accurate mapping of stressed syllables onto beats or off beats in the case of syncopation. And this is why they have this kind of thing going on, right? Because sometimes they're on the beat and sometimes they're on the offbeat. And they have to kind of keep it marked where the beat is while they... and that's what these hand signs are for, I think. And the distribution of unstressed syllables into the temporal spaces between these stressed syllables, and grouping of the so-formed rhythmic units into phrases. There are certain techniques for accounting for breaths. You can't just rap and not breathe. You have to breathe. So where do you breathe? Either at the line end, if it's the end of the phrase, or in the cut in the line. Okay, and then there's this guy called Derek Attridge who wrote this concept of beat prosody, and he says, quite rightly, rhythm in English poetry is realized by the alternation of beats and off beats. It's very simple. And in Russian, I would say this is also true. One way of looking at the rhythm is by writing it down in musical form. This was my translation of Lermontov's text. And you can see that I've kind of put the unstressed syllables at the beginning. This is called anacrusis. And then the bar line always starts on a stressed syllable. Моя душа, я помню с детских лет. Cut, breath, right? Чудесного искала, я любил все обольщения. Okay, kind of not right here because обольщение, not обольщение. But okay, kind of gives us a structure. Обольщение света, но не свет, в котором я минутами лишил. Right? So that gives us a basic structure. And I've tried to repeat that pattern with English. Eternal soul, since childhood I recall, in search of the miraculous sublime, not light itself, but light's delusions all, in which I dwelt for minutes at a time. Okay? So kind of the same pattern. But this doesn't really catch the rhythm very well, I have to say. But it gives us a structure. And any musicians here will see that the 3-2 time signature here, kind of unusual, especially for rap. Rap is almost always 4-4. But 3-2 is a good way of representing iambic pentameter, which is what this is. And we're going to do a paper exercise later. You are going to stress mark some English text. So look carefully at what is done here. You have to syllabify the text. So use a hyphen to break the syllables up. Моя душа, я помню с детских лет. Right? 10 syllables in a line. And чудесного искала, я любил. Iambic pentameter. And you'll see that the word stresses in Russian, which I got from a website, but I checked with a native speaker as well. Unfortunately, there's no good website for stress marking in English. I don't know how you will do it. Just hear it. Ask a native speaker. There should be a website. Any programmers here with vast resources of time and... I guess not. And we've got some other features here. I've also marked the main stress in the phrase. And again, this has been checked with a native Russian speaker. So tell me if this sounds right. And I've also marked secondary phrase stresses. So the main stress is red and bold. Secondary stress is just bold. So моя душа, я помню с детских лет, чудесного искала. Right? Does that sound natural? Ish? Of course, Lermontov maybe doesn't sound so natural to a modern Russian's ear. Я любил все обольщения света. And then this sign is end of phrase, right? But it's also breath. So end of phrase is always breath.
I would have put the stress in the third line on the обольщение.
Обольщение света.
Все обольщение света, а не свет.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Would you like to read the next line, how you hear it? The next phrase. Но не свет.
Я любил все обольщения света, но не свет, в котором я минуту не жил, не светлее. Эти мгновения были неполны, и населял таинственный мгновение его сон, как мир не мог быть имел начала.
And would you take the breaths in the same place?
No,
No.
I'm a specialist in breathing.
Breath specialist.
I'm not a breath specialist, no. Because I tend to lose all the breath while breathing anything aloud.
Mm-hmm. Моя душа, я помню с детских лет, чудесного искала. Я любил все обольщения света, но не свет, в котором я минутами лишил. И те мгновения были мук полны, и населял таинственные сны я этими мгновениями, но сон, как мир, не мог быть ими омрачен. Как часто силой мысли в краткий час я жил века и жизнью иной, и о земле позабывал, не раз тревоженный печальною мечтой я плакал. Но все образы мои, предметы мнимой злобы и любви, не походили на существенных. О нет, все было ад или небо в них. Холодной буквой трудно объяснить парение дум. Нет звуков у людей довольно сильных, чтобы изобразить желание блаженства. Пыл страстей возвышенных я чувствую, но слов не нахожу, и в этот миг готов пожертвовать собой, чтоб как-нибудь хоть тень их перелить в другую грудь. So that was the original. Now let's try the English. Eternal soul, since childhood I recall, in search of the miraculous sublime, not light itself, but light's delusions all, in which I dwelt for minutes at a time. And torments filled those moments, as it seems I'd occupy such enigmatic dreams amongst those instants. But like peace, the dream within could never find release. How often, summoned by some ghost refrain, I lived another age, another chance, forgot the world and time again, when searching from a departed trance, Brent's incisions didn't seem like creatures who could dwell on earth. All in them was holy or from hell. In simple prose a man cannot describe eternal strife, but I feel other tones sufficiently resounding to imbibe ambrosia. I feel this vagabond's exalted passions, yet still undeclared, struck dumb. But now I am prepared to sacrifice myself for something good, though its shadow flee into the wood. Okay. Would anybody like to identify some features of the translation? And by all means criticize. For example, where I changed the meaning, which I did, where I didn't stick with Lermontov's original structure, or what can you find? Pull it to pieces.
Well, can I say?
Yes.
About the meaning?
Yes.
The обращение света, но не свет. Свет in this sense means this society and not light.
Yes. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of was aware of that, and I tried to kind of. You're quite right.
It's like the Tolstoy's play on words.
Yeah. Right. And so, light's delusions, to me, that's a kind of metaphorical commentary on the same point about social life. But I agree, it takes quite a bit of interpretation.
I'm not sure. Maybe the word light in English has this.
Well, it can, but not as directly as in Russian. Yeah. What about the form? Did anyone notice anything? Well, Lermontov sticks to 10 syllables per line throughout.
Я плакал, но все образы мои. I wept, but all those restless
visions, right.
Extra syllable.
That's right. So I've gone for feminine rhymes, substituting Lermontov's masculine rhymes in quite a few cases. Da 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 da, and I've gone da 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 da. Right? Visions and scissions. And I do a lot more of that further on. I use some triple rhymes where Lermontov's, all his rhymes are masculine. All 256 lines are masculine rhymed. So there's been quite a lot of adaptation. I've transformed the metaphors, sometimes losing a bit of meaning, sacrificing. I've also changed the form. But I claim that my translation works against the same music as Lermontov's. Well, okay, it's artificial.
It has the same flow. Can I say so?
Well, this is how I would like it to be criticized. Does it or does it not? So this Heraclitus Flow project, which some of you here participated in as translators, which is ongoing, right? 5 texts which were performed at Kamerny Theater in January, and at least one person here present translated some of these rappable texts made rappable translations into Russian. I can say about the register that I aimed for a sincere irony register. This Thomas Rifmach, my rapper alter ego, he is a sincere ironist.
Can you explain the sincere irony?
Well, it's a term which is associated with metamodernism, which is supposedly the post-modernist register. And it's a kind of, it's quite similar to early Romantic irony of Byron and Pushkin and Lermontov. They were also sincere ironists, in my opinion. But of course, in a different time. So it just comes around. But there is certainly a problem here, how to be sincere and ironic at the same time. How do we catch that as translators? Such registers. So combining traditional themes with postmodern references, a feature of these texts. Kind of for translators, give you something to work with. And contemporary musical styles and rap genre. And I aim to create a Russian language version of the stage show. So maybe next year there will be a show in Russian. It all depends on whether we get enough good translations. And the competition that we announced in January will conclude today. The winners will be announced. And I can say that we have 3 winning entries now, I can say. And that means that there are 2 texts left. And we are going to announce another competition to translate those texts if anyone here wishes to participate. So one of the texts that we performed and asked, invited translators to translate in this competition was called Lovely Jubilee 2020. And we received many, I think about 5 translations of this text into Russian, but all of them were unsuccessful, in my opinion. There wasn't a single successful translation of this song. So I would like to wonder, let's consider why, and let's consider if there is a possibility to translate this in Russian. Maybe not. Maybe it's impossible. I doubt it. I think everything is possible. But following Gumilev, we will say that we have to preserve the number of lines, the meter and measure, the alternation of rhymes, the character of enjambment and caesura if it exists. Caesura, that's the cut, right? Enjambment, caesura. Talking about line and phrase. The character of rhymes, the linguistic register, sincere irony, metaphor type, special devices, transitions of tone. I'm going to rap the whole song. You shall make this year holy, proclaim pandemic liberty. All must bow down and worship me. Who can disagree? Each vagabond and refugee returning to his family to occupy his property and ponder jubilee. Slaves and prisoners set free, all debts erased from memory, each grace and favour tenancy disposed without a fee. From each to his ability, residing in this colony, the trend repeated globally, this lovely jubilee. But lacking the propensity to live in close community, the working class and bourgeoisie dispute the price of tea, all coming under scrutiny, with drowning in hypocrisy, increasing in intensity in spite of Jubilee. Then leaders ruling by decree, who were not able to foresee the scope of herd immunity, provide a guarantee with striking ingenuity and nuanced ambiguity, financialize society to gild the Jubilee. But everyone turned out to be, as usual, much too cowardly to reach potentiality and turn the master key. Norms of herd morality, applying all too humanly the principle of me, 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 and that's no Jubilee. Breakthroughs in technology and crowd control psychology, with eyeball tracking constantly to see what we can see. The subsequent economy is focused in aid of Jubilee. Not quantity, but quality, the strains of sacred melody combine in perfect harmony to build the face of we. But imprecative blasphemy from Gomorrah and Sodomy rang out in animosity to taint the Jubilee. Stunted in our sovereignty, like Hamlet's sad soliloquy, we're doomed to be or not to be. I'm counting. 1, 2, 3. But there's no sense of urgency. We live in modest luxury to face the bare contingency of Holy Jubilee. Those born in the last century are buried in the cemetery, or ashes from the crematory scattered out at sea. Redemptive contiguity assures the lasting legacy of long conjoined humanity in lovely Jubilee. Спасибо. Ну, как вы думаете, возможно переводить этот текст на русском? На русский?
Много интернациональной лексики, поэтому...
Ага. Well, like I said, it hasn't been successfully translated yet, but quite a few people tried. And this is because the special effects are not easily reproducible. You've got to identify them, you've got to find an equivalent. Is there an equivalent? And if you're going to try to catch this E sound, do you have the words muy, or can you wrench the syllables so that E appears? Or do you find some other effect that works? Next. Okay, we're going to skip this and this and this. We might go back. And this. And this. Okay. Now, right. So, well, I think now is the time to announce that this is the winning text. Oh, really? You are the... and with your permission, I would like to analyze why this is successful.
Can we look at the original?
Well, no, I tell you what we will do. I will perform the original, and you will read Svetlana's translation, okay? And so you will kind of see how it fits, right? Okay. I will survive. The words make up the phrase, sung by Gloria Gaynor to a tearful crowd of gays in sad self-isolation. I'll call a spade a spade. The barman's calling time on this identity parade. I feel the longing of the lone long-distance lover, but when it comes to sentiment, I keep it undercover. My life matters, at least to me, but why? Who will survives to will again, but who am I? At breakneck speed, my form depends on vigorous mutation, cytoplasmic inheritance flown on constant replication. At rates of reproduction where the fastest is the slowest, I infect my hosts, but only whose resistance is the lowest. I'll get my protein coat, I'm leaving all these sad farewells. I cannot live in freedom, spend my time locked up in cells, parasitically depend on that of which I'm most desirous. I am a virus, and I'll survive Oh, as long as I'm mutating, you can say that I'm alive. I've got all your life to live, I've got immunity to give, and I'll survive. I will survive. Dreamt up by colonials to prove their reign of terror. Bounded by my neighbour, whom I'm doomed to always mirror. Encroachment, conquest, slavery, revolt, extermination. Reluctant to assimilate, I combat integration in these rivers of blood in which no man steps twice. I want to play, but don't want to play nice. You'll dominate, I'll be your bitch, just tell me to my face that I'm a race. And I'll survive. Oh, as long as I remember who I am, I'll be alive. I've got all my life to live, I've got inheritance to give, and I'll survive. I will survive. I'll impregnate my sister, lift my hand against my brother, he whose sacrifice was pleasing to the Lord. I'll mend his torment with my perfect sword. And wandering the earth condemned to arbitrary freedom, I invent bizarre machines to ease my suppurating tedium, inhabiting the world since time began. I am a man, and I'll survive. Oh, as long as I'm determining myself, I'll be alive. I've got all my life to live, I've got my cleverness to give, and I'll survive. I will survive. Receptive, all-embracing, I anticipate deflowering, that my idiot compassion spawn a mother all-devouring, or an icy queen whose reign entails 1,000 years of winter. I'm Karaba, the sorceress, whose spine conceals a splinter, to be plucked by Kirikou, who ungirds my underbodice, to bloom into a beautiful and open-hearted goddess, embodying in truth exactly half of what is human. I am a woman, and I'll survive. Oh, as long as I am nurturing, you know I'll be alive. I've got all my life to live, and I've got all my love to give, and I'll survive. I'll survive. Oh, history is murderous, for dead men tell no tales. As a player on this stage, life expectancy entails, but in waging war or trade I give no quarter. I'll be pensioned in the form of bricks and mortar, and like all such men rewarded for their violence, I'll endeavour that my victims rest in silence. In terms of slave religion, I, a sinner. But I'm a winner, and I'll survive. Oh, as long as I've got narrative, I know I'll stay alive. I've got all my life to live, and I've got evidence to give, and I'll survive. I will survive. I am the spark of grace that sets the universe ablaze, scintillating everywhere until the end of days. The suffering and pain amongst the human population are but food for me, my drink, their rank humiliation. The older that I get, the more I'm saving up my semen, storing vital energy for battling these demons while I'm waiting for the angels to arrive. I will survive. So congratulations to Svetlana, the winner. We also have a runner-up who is in Irkutsk. I don't know if she has joined us on Zoom. Petrova Yevgenia. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation, called a masterclass, but well, I hope you've learned something from it. If you are interested in participating in the ongoing competition of 2 more songs, please leave your email address and we will contact you.